Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you wherever you're tuning in around the world for this latest Reuters event supply chain webinar on a topic of ever increasing importance, transportation visibility. I'm delighted to be joined by such an esteemed group as we discuss cost reduction, sustainability, customer experience, amongst other things. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce each of the panelists. First up, Andy. Andy, can you please introduce yourself and your organization to the audience, please?
Yes, thanks so much. And thanks very much for Reuters for hosting us. I'm Andy Moses. I am the Sales and Solutions Leader for Penske Logistics. I've been with the organization here for 36 years. I have direct day-to-day interaction with many shippers across multiple industries. And looking forward to hearing from my co-panelists and having a good discussion with the audience today.
Thanks for joining us, Andy. And next up, Adam, can you please introduce yourself too?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Adam Leclair. I lead our sales and operations execution team at CHS. CHS is one of the leading ag businesses across industries such as grain, agronomy, food, and energy. And I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Adam. And next up, Mario, can you please introduce yourself and your organization, please?
Yes, sure. So I'm Pablo Rodriguez. I'm the Global Director for Logistics Transformation from the technology side. So I'm part of InBev, the world's largest brewer in the world. We have operations in 6 zones, and we produce beers like Budweiser, Stella, Bud Light, and all these fantastic beers. So thank you for having me.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us, Mario. And last but not least, Elsy, can you please introduce yourself too?
Hi, everyone. I'm Eliseo Sejo. I'm the Director of Supply Chain Strategy at Bimbo Bakers USA, which is part of Grupo Bimbo, which is the largest bakery in the world. We produce in the United States brands such as Sara Lee, Thomas English Muffins, Entenmann's, Brunberry, or Wheat, Bimbo Marinella, and Barcel as well. We distribute that brand. In my current role, I oversee transformational initiatives such as technology implementation, automation, and strategy on the long term, as well as overseeing our bakery and DC footprint and current and future state. In prior roles at BBU, I have been involved in sourcing optimization, supply chain services, which is in tune with the on-time in full metrics, as well as inventory and distribution.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Elsy. To start things off, we're running a poll in the background that the panelists will comment on later on in the discussion. So I would appreciate if the audience can answer the question that should pop up on your screen. To kick things off in terms of the main discussion while the poll is running, visibility is obviously a very important term in the industry right now. Starting off with Adam, what does visibility mean for you and your organization, and why is it so important?
Yeah, visibility to CHS is really being able to see our facilities, our operations, our inventory in real time, really focused on global track and trace, inventory tracing, and freight collaboration, while integrating with our supplier partners, our operational teams, and our customers. And we really view this as disrupting the industry, because it's really putting a focus on the customer experience through that improved visibility, so you can make those decisions in real time, increasing your competitiveness with our speed to market in that decision-making process, and focus on unlocking your supply chain agility. And our position is this enabling visibility is necessary for a higher maturity in our supply chain journey. So thanks, Nick.
Excellent, Adam. Just Mario, just to Adam's points there, what's your perspective on this? Why is visibility so important for AB InBev?
So we have a huge operation that we need to monitor and make sure that we are fulfilling our commitment to our customers and consumers, right? Therefore, having the right visibility, the right end-to-end visibility is critical for having the ensuring that we're not having any impact on their service. We're a customer-centric company. Therefore, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to avoid any disruption. Visibility help us foresee what is coming, take decisions before things appear, And we have been working on the previous years on ensuring that we increase our visibility in our transport network and our supplier network. In the future, we're working on making sure that we are connecting those two to have a better view, be more agile on our decision making and making better decisions. So it's critical for our service. It's critical for our commitment to our customers.
Perfect. Andy, just from your perspective, just from the logistics service provider's perspective, to Adam and Mario's points there around visibility, why is it so important right now?
Yeah, when I think about visibility, supply chain management in general done well, it's an orchestration across many functions. So procurement, finance, operations, traffic, but it also includes other trading partners, carriers and suppliers, and so on. So having visibility, and I would say specifically freight status visibility, it's a key ingredient to all this running smoothly. I could only imagine what it means to Mario if he doesn't have track of where his aluminum cans are coming from, and if enough are going to show up at his plant on any given day to do his process. The stakes are very high right now, and so never has it been more important, given the cost of expedited and spot rate type transportation, which tend to be the antidotes to poor visibility.
Definitely. Elsy, just from your perspective, obviously visibility is a big buzzword in the industry right now. What would you say is the current state of play from an industry perspective when it comes to visibility in transportation networks?
Well, that kind of complements the first question, right, Nick? So for us, having the visibility in our transportation networks is extremely important, and let me explain why. From when we make the bread, that visibility is extremely important, from bakeries to distribution centers to sales centers to grocery stores. But not only of the flow of the food or the bread, sweet baked goods that we handle, but also the trays where we handle the goods, which is those baskets that need to go back to the bakery. So for us, when it comes to visibility, it is not only the flow of the goods and products to the customer, but also how our, I will say, inverse logistics or reverse logistics of the trays go back to the bakeries, because that is the, I will say, the bloodline of how the bakery will run and the performance as well. It's not only the ingredients, but also the equipment. So for us, in our industry, as it's extremely dynamic, is not only that visibility of the network going out, but also going in. In addition to that, we also handle visibility by exception, and it can go very granular if you want to. So having the capability of really understanding what you want when you want it, it's very critical in order to make decisions, which I know that Mario and Adam have already touched on it. So besides those trade returns, the other thing that is very unique in our industry, especially in the food industry, is that we have bakeries that support each other. What do I mean with that? Whenever there's an act of God or a pandemic, so we have, if there's one bakery that it's shut down because of any reason, we have other bakeries that can make those products in order to service the market, and it can happen instantly. So that flexibility for us is extremely important in order to have that visibility. So for us, that's the current state of play, and that is how we enhance the visibility of our transportation networks.
Definitely appreciate that, Elsy. So just sharing the results of the poll here, and Andy, I'd love to hear your perspective. There's a lot of answers kind of in the middle, as we'd expect, kind of 4, 5, 6. So it seems like many companies are on their journey towards end-to-end visibility. I'd love to hear your perspective on where you see the industry from a transportation visibility perspective.
Yeah, as we navigate this, obviously there's the tech side, and the technology itself is moving along and it's improving. So what do I mean by that? More and more transportation modes are becoming available to have some of the sophisticated tech tools in the way of support. From what I can see, though, the technology in and of itself isn't the whole solution. It really takes great process management discipline. If you can combine the tech with great process management discipline, that's going to give you visibility that your stakeholders can rely on. And so many organizations are, as part of their digital strategy, making this freight status visibility available and visible to customers and other trading partners. It's got to be accurate. And there's typically quite a bit of process management discipline that makes that happen. When you consider that in many cases, there are suppliers and carriers at varying levels of size and sophistication that all play in the supply chain, there's got to be a place for all of them in the visibility strategy for it to work.
Definitely appreciate that, Andy. So from our poll, there's a lot of companies that are in the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to transportation visibility. Starting off with Mario, I'd love to hear your advice for companies that are starting off their visibility journey. What would you recommend for them?
Just first of all, taking what Andy was saying. I mean, it's just not about technology, only about technology. It's about the processes to make sure that you have quality data that you can use, right? So processes is something fundamental in this. Again, it's basically is data and transparency what you're looking for. And if you don't have the right data, you cannot have the right outcome. The second point that I will mention is having the right data strategy, right? Because if you don't have the right data strategy, you will end up with some silos in the way that the visibility is happening, and then connecting those silos it gets very complicated. So I will say that the right data strategy, looking at the holistic, look at the data strategy in a holistic manner, is something that is critical to ensure that you will have the right approach or the right outcome. The third point that I will mention is making sure that you're building with the right granularity, right? What do you want to see? Exactly what you will need. The fourth point is thinking about the future. So every visibility initiative that you have will have to have additional components for automation, additional component for ensuring that you're making better decisions. So having the capacity to run analytics or algorithms on top of it. I will say that building for the future is something that you need to take into account when you're starting this journey. And again, reinforcing the message that Andy gave us is process is super important. It is what are the processes that you will run on top of that? What are the processes to ensure that the right data is coming? What are the processes to ensure that you are taking the right decisions? We have go a long journey in our implementation of this in SAS in our Brazilian business unit. They have made a great progress on that. They're leading the way in our company. And we're trying to make sure also, which is the last point of my recommendation, is making sure that you can scale that solution or that implementation across other BUs. So you don't have to rebuild. You're just leveraging what you build once and moving it to other zones. So that will be my recommendation.
Great points, Mario. Adam, just bringing in your perspective here to Mario and Andy's points. Do you have any recommendations for companies that are on the start of this journey?
Yeah, and as you heard Andy touch on, you have different carriers and different vendor partners that are at a different level of maturity. So one of the things that we identified as we were partnering with some of our providers is, your range of communication varies from EDI, API, smartphones, and email. And so you have to be prepared to work across, different scopes of communication. And understand that, there may not be a one-size-fits-all solution out there. And some of those requirements may need to be regionalized with a feedback loop to your control towers or your data lakes so that you can get that visibility so you can react to those volatile supply chain situations. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure we did up front is really understanding what our business use cases were, partnering with our customers and clearly understanding that we're solving the right problems within our supply chain as well as, enabling theirs. And also engaging your providers early on to really understand your savings models and opportunities to ensure your solution really meets your business requirements. I think that'd be the last point I'd make.
Perfect. Andy, do you have any points to add to Adam's points there?
I'm just building on Adam's comments, and that everything that he said, this is not a Monday through Friday thing. This is not a 9 to 5 thing. This is pretty much has to be 24/7 in order to be best in class when it comes to presenting this type of information back to all the various stakeholders that are going to make decisions based on this data. To either, if they're procurement, they're going to be pulling forward orders, perhaps. If it's transportation, they're arranging for backup support on moves, or there's so many things that people are relying on to make good, sound decisions, all of which is going to come back around in terms of cost and service.
Great points, and something that we'll discuss further on in the conversation. Elsy, just bringing yourself in there. Lots been mentioned here around kind of the steps and the processes needed as you're undertaking this journey. Do you have anything to add just to what's been mentioned already?
Yes, I mean, my prior roles, I was actually in small companies, and what I have experienced is that companies that really want to start their transportation journey, first they need to hire the people to interpret the data with the facts, and then start evaluating a software visibility. That's the first step, having the people, understanding the data with facts, and then understanding which system do you need, kind of what Adam touched on. And if you don't have enough budget to hire a supply chain analyst or a specialist, then understand which companies can provide that software of that visibility that you want. And really understanding and tying your mission and your values as a company with your customer service experience, and how will this visibility or this software of a company visibility can provide and fill that gap. So those are the items I can add as to what Adam, Marion, Andy
Definitely.
mentioned.
I think talent is obviously a very important part of this whole process. Something else that gets mentioned when it comes to visibility is the S word of sustainability. Andy, just bringing yourself in here, would love for you to explain how transportation visibility can be leveraged correctly to drive down carbon footprint in logistics operations.
I would say very easily, fortunately, because this is such a focus, as well as it should be. But I mean, think of the simple things that we can do. If we start by just tracking and understanding how loaded our trucks are, the trucks that we send out and the trucks that come to us, clearly there are opportunities in that. And this plays out in many practical ways. So if you're a manufacturer, focus on gaining inbound visibility. Elsy talked about it, how critical those trays are to the overall processes, because when things go wrong, ultimately, Elsy's not going to shut down a plant. They're going to expedite the movement of those trays. Or if you're a manufacturer and you find yourself shipping 1 pallet of product on an airplane, well, we know that's not great from a sustainability perspective. And so these are some just simple examples of how having good, solid visibility on both at an outbound and an inbound basis can help drive sustainability goals.
Perfect. Elsy, just from your perspective to Andy's points there, how do you see transportation visibility feeding into broader sustainability goals?
Well, I think first you need to understand your current situation and then your future situation. And for that, you must, specifically in transportation, first you need to understand your number of runs, miles, planned versus actual, cubing as well, which is very important and tied to carbon footprint because you can reduce vehicles on the road. So understanding your cubing, planned versus actual, and then what's the journey on improvement. Once you understand the data, then you need to start putting the hardware into it, which is, hey, can you expand your alternative fuel fleet? Which we're actually in that journey right now in Grupo Bimbo. By 2022, we're looking to expand to 500 alternative fuel fleet. which is going to be compressed natural gas or propane. So things like that, first, having the visibility, understanding current versus actual, and then what's your journey or your transportation future. How can you actually reduce your footprint as to miles, runs, and then, okay, which vehicles do I need? What other alternatives do I need? Do I need to actually change modes in order to reduce the carbon footprint? Can I actually use intermodal, which is also another journey that we are right now? We're actually analyzing that specific project as to intermodal. And for us, it's very critical because our codes or our shelf life in our products is very short. It's from 7 to 14 days. In some sweet baked goods, maybe going up to 30, 90 days. So we need to understand, okay, which products we can do that intermodal in order to reduce our carbon footprint. And then what we can do with the other products that we can't, and how we can optimize utilizing alternative fuels.
Definitely, there's a lot of really great points there. I think that a lot of tangible insights for our audience on sustainability there. Mario, I'd love to hear your perspective on how you see transportation visibility feeding into sustainability goals.
Yeah, we have in ABI, we have committed to being net zero across our supply chain of our value chain in 2040, right? What it means for us is we need to make sure that we're taking the impact of our operations in increasing or decreasing our carbon footprint. So the visibility that we're having right now is allowing us to have to monitor obviously the efficiency of our trips, the backhauling trips that we have, and how do we increase those and the efficiencies there, triangulations, right, to avoid the miles that our trucks are making. We are also monitoring braking and acceleration in our trucks, because that also has an impact on the carbon footprint. So basically, all this data and all this visibility help us identify ways to reduce our impact, ways to as Andy was saying also, and Elsy, is how do you use intermodal ways to get your products to your customers in a more efficient way. But it's just it's a whole new challenge, which I'm very excited about, and is how do we get all that visibility and what decisions we make with all that data to ensure that we are having a smaller impact in our world.
Great points, Mario. Before we move on to the next question, I'd love to hear your perspective, Adam. I think Elsy and Mario touched on some great points from kind of the shipper's perspective on this, but do you have any thoughts to add here?
Yeah, I guess for us, one of the areas we look at is, how we improve that SIFOT metric. It minimizes at-risk shipments with the visibility, what visibility provides. So you're going to have less trucks on the road. It's less disruptive because now if you can have less wait times with your consumers as well as your suppliers. And then it also helps enable other technologies, as you heard Elsy mention, around, just having maybe where you can leverage other modes of transportation, whether you're looking at autonomous vehicles or alternative fuels. You can now evaluate, whether you're going to go truck versus rail, because now you can really look at your supply chain and your transit times and say, well, can I potentially risk having a longer transit time because I know where my dynamic ETAs are going to arrive at my facility. So you can look at a lot more options that historically you may not have had the data or the visibility to really evaluate.
Perfect. Mario, obviously we kind of joked about this question previously, but I'm going to try and ask you it anyway. How can logistics leaders, drive cost reduction, sustainability goals, and enhance the customer experience? It does seem like a logistics utopia, but just from your perspective, how are you managing that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I told you that this is what we are trying to do every day, right? So be more efficient, have less impact on our environment, and increase the customer experience. I mean, right now, what we have a lot of initiatives that are helping us improve our the way that we plan, the way that we are fulfilling our customers. So again, it comes back again to data, right? Is the more data we have, the more quality data we have, we can have better and optimal execution. That's one of the ways that we're doing this. Sustainability. I mean, we as it was mentioned before, we're looking also to have greener trucks, greener, I mean, alternative fuels, CNG, right? Electric trucks and all of that to ensure that we are again having a less impact on our environment. And customer, how do we make it more improve our customer experience? Is just monitoring our how are we fulfilling our commitment to them, right? And that's again going back to the visibility. So in the transformation that we're the transformation journey that we have in AB InBev, our customers are our main focus, and we're bringing new functionalities, new solutions, more integrated, so we can give and empower our colleagues in the company to make better decisions, right? That will reflect in better customer service. So as a whole is we are leveraging new technologies. We are making sure that we have better data to make better decisions and empower our frontline and our colleagues in the company.
Excellent. Appreciate you tackling that very difficult question. Andy, just from the logistics service providers perspective, how do you see logistics leaders driving cost reduction, sustainability, and enhancing that consumer experience?
Well, I think there are multiple ways of going at this. I still see a lot of low-hanging fruit in the logistics trade. I mean, one of the reasons why there's this tremendous amount of investment capital flowing into logistics technology is the perception that there are still antiquated processes out there in trucking, warehousing, and logistics. And so we're an industry of entrepreneurs. The average size truck fleet of a for-hire carrier in the United States is actually very small. It's only a few vehicles. And so there's a lot of opportunity in the way of streamlining supply chains and automating that I think will help achieve these goals. But I would pick up on the comment about data. And so where you get your best sustainable operations is by having most days be normal days. And it's when you're managing exceptions and disruptions, and you have to then go outside of what's normal and start expediting and start shipping 4 pallets on a truck when you should be shipping 22, and things like that, you know, you're giving up some of the potential carbon gain. So there's a lot to be gleaned from data, and there's a lot to be developed from a predictive perspective. We've made good progress in terms of getting out ahead of responding to disruptions, but we can make more.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Andy, Elsy, just from your perspective, just talking about, you know, this, you know, equation that a lot of companies are facing right now, cost reduction, sustainability goals, and customer experience. How are you tackling that challenge?
Well, in Grupo Bimbo in general, that sustainability goal is embedded in our company's mission and is driven by the C-suite. Just recently, Daniel Servige, who is the CEO of Grupo Bimbo, was named one of the 100 Mexicans that drive sustainability overall. So that by itself speaks hugely about how committed is Grupo Bimbo in general worldwide in sustainability. So just having that base, then that's when logistics leaders can really start driving initiatives and cost reductions and enhancing the customer experience with sustainability. In addition to that, and I know that Andy mentioned this, it's like sustainability can be in any part of your supply chain or value chain. And for us, it is that. I mean, we are working on strategies, really reducing the environmental impact in the entire value chain, not only in transportation, which includes basically the efficient use of natural resources, waste reduction, and building resilient ecosystems through regenerative agriculture practices. So all of that is extremely important for sustainability, not only transportation, and that visibility from end to end, from, we grow the wheat to all the way when we deliver the last loaf of bread to our customer. That is very important sustainability-wise to have that end-to-end visibility.
Excellent. Appreciate that context, Elsy. Before we move on, Adam, I'd love to hear your perspective on how you're tackling this problem.
Yeah, the group made really good points. To CHS, visibility is really a critical part of the customer experience as well as our productivity. As we all think about, in this modern age, how quickly we now have access to information and to be able to purchase goods as consumers, a lot of that pressure is now going to be felt by the supply chain and our procedures and our process, because the expectations now of our customers are a lot higher. They're expecting real-time information. The expectation is that we'll be able to react to a lot of these disruptions in real time. And so, by leveraging machine learning and, being able to provide dynamic ETAs and learn as you're moving through your supply chain journey becomes very critical, because that's the expectation now, is that people want to see it in real time. They want to be able for you to react to it and give them that information so that you're not negatively disrupting their business. And so it's just a very critical part of the customer experience.
Great point. So obviously, as an industry, we're still on this journey towards end-to-end visibility. Andy, just from your perspective, what are you seeing as some of the current barriers that are preventing end-to-end visibility of transportation networks specifically?
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple of things. One, I would say, is really the resource availability of IT professionals to be devoted to the supply chain end of many of these large companies. And so as a 3PL, 4PL here, that delights us, right? Because realistically, that's what we do. And so we become an avenue to get things done that most of the companies we serve can certainly do it, but do they have the resources to put towards it relative to other priorities? The other big thing I would say is that we're really moving over the last few years from many batch-oriented processes to real-time processes. And so, we've sort of touched on this earlier, Nick, that things have to be accurate around the clock. And so I'll give you an example of one of the things we've done to make that happen. About 2 years ago, we stood up a transportation support center. And when our drivers' supervisors go home, folks in this center have responsibility for that driver. And they're not only there to support the driver if something goes wrong, but they're monitoring system accuracy so that if something gets fat-fingered or what have you, which happens day to day in this world of running routes and making deliveries, that we're there to not only take care of the physical needs of the driver, but to make sure that our systems are up and operating capably around the clock. So that's resources, that's investment. That's part of what it's going to take to, those are some of the barriers, I guess, that have to be overcome.
Great points. And Elsy, obviously you mentioned that talent element early in the conversation. Would love to hear your perspective just on Andy's points there around talent and some of the other barriers that you're seeing that's preventing end-to-end visibility.
Yes, I think it's very important for people in the organization that will be using this transportation network, if they have been trained, how their roles will be changing with the new technology, which is all embedded to change management in general. So a current barrier is actually for end-to-end visibility for us is not having data compliance, which means sometimes people won't be entering the information in actual real time. and therefore the data is not as pure as you want it to be. So for that, we ensure that the people are trained, but also there's a change management to it as to what is in it for them in order to utilize the system in the benefit to make their job easier and to really make decisions faster. So I think it ties on to all the other things we have spoken about. And for us, the people component is extremely important in order to embed systems in it. So people, it's very important to have them train processes and to really understand how the roles will change. Not necessarily cut, but how it will change in order to use the technology.
Perfect. Great points there around the training aspect of things. Mario, I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, I would like to complement it. I mean, going from inside to outside the company. So inside, I mean, I think that one of the barriers is our legacy, some of the legacy systems, some of the highly fragmented landscape that we have in some of the operations, and how do we make sure that we take steps to avoid that from stopping us having the right visibility and the right real-time data that Andy was mentioning also. That's one point. The legacy systems and the highly fragmented landscape. The second part that I think is also a barrier is one of the challenges that we're having is how do we integrate upstream, right, with our suppliers and stuff. And I think that the barrier there is a little bit of collaboration and trust. I think that the technology is there. Technology is available. If we have the budget and the things that were mentioned before, we will be able to get access to that technology. But it's having the right mindset for to collaborate and having the trust relationship, right? Which is something that we have, but when we need to get the full visibility, is something that is moving your trust to a different level, right? So it's improving that relationship and making sure that it's a win-win relationship between all of us.
Great points there, Mario. Adam, just from your perspective, I'd love to hear, just slightly forward thinking, what opportunities do you see for your organization as we drive towards more end-to-end visibility?
Yeah, in a lot of our organizations, we have a global footprint. We can leverage visibility to replan daily based on current market conditions. As we all experienced over the last couple of years with COVID, that was a very disruptive event. And that visibility can enable you to react in real time to reduce your inventory, mitigate any potential risks due to impacts in those changing market conditions, whether it be weather, political landscapes, or legislative changes. And so those are really the opportunities. It's, the challenges, as you heard the group mention, is we have people participating and communicating across different standards and really having access to that data in a standard format. But as soon as you solve that problem, being able to react to that information and then consume it and then make your decisions with precision and being dynamic is really going to be differentiate you from your competitors.
Great points there, Adam. Andy, I'd love to hear your perspective on the opportunities that you see through kind of as we drive towards more end-to-end visibility.
Well, we're so excited about this. I mean, because this is the glue that can bring supply chains together. I think about the tech landscape in particular, where you have order management systems, TMS systems, warehouse management systems, and ERP systems. Enhancing these visibility technologies is enabling us to lay control towers over all these systems without having to rip and replace the underlying systems that are in place, and really unite the various parties that participate in the supply chains. So I think I see great things ahead. I think we're still in the early stages of our visibility journey, though. 10 years ago, we would proudly walk customers through our facilities and give them tours and show them dozens of cubicles filled with people that were making track and trace calls around their freight. And you wouldn't dream of doing something like that today. So we are making good progress, but I still feel like we're somewhat early in this game.
Definitely. So exciting times to be in the logistics industry. Elsy, just from your perspective, what opportunities do you see as we drive towards more end-to-end visibility?
In our perspective, as our industry is very dynamic, we do need to understand what is the cost of losing space in the grocery store or customers in general. Our end-to-end visibility, of course, and what Adam was talking about, you have visibility of data and you can make decisions, but do we normally understand what is the cost? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. If we do have the cost, sometimes we don't understand the repercussion of the customer, what it will be costing us if we lose the customer. So that's kind of the opportunity I think overall we need to understand. And specifically, we're moving to an e-commerce platform, right? Which is still, I think, on an infancy state in the United States. But I think it has so much potential to really understand what's the cost of a customer, specifically talking to end-to-end visibility.
Perfect. Appreciate that, Elsy. Something that's come up a lot is the kind of the change management piece. Mario, I'd love to hear your perspective on how we can create cultures that embrace technology and the people that we need to transform and innovate on the journey that we've been talking about today.
Yeah, so as Elsy mentioned before, is we need to put the people in the center of everything of what we do, right? And that's one of the values of what we have here in ABI, and it's one of our main goals is put the people in the center, make sure that what we're doing are bringing benefits for them, right? Otherwise, they will be against any implementation or any new technology or any changes that are coming, right? I will say that we have some other two components that are critical in our culture, which are the dream big, right? We need people that think in a different manner. That in the past, people were thinking about how to put a faster horse in front of the car, but we need people that are thinking how to build a new car, right? And that's the people that we need now, is people that dream big. And that's, again, part of what the ABI InBev culture is about. And the other point is people that are never satisfied, right? So we have to open the gaps, see what is out there in the market, benchmark with other companies, implement the new technologies, fail fast, which I think is not fail fast, but learn fast of what you're doing. And in that way, you can build, if you have people that dream big, if you have people that are never satisfied, and you have the capacity, and you give the people the capacity to fail fast, learn fast, you will be creating a culture that will help you embrace the technology and make the transformation that you need, right?
Excellent. Appreciate that, Mario. Adam, would love to hear your perspective, just to Mario's points there on the culture and the innovation required to drive some of this change.
Yeah, I think we as leaders, it's our responsibility to invest in our culture early, specifically with these emerging technologies, identify those those change agents in your business. Take the time to educate people on technology. When I say invest, it doesn't necessarily need to mean dollars. Encourage continued education through your business team members. Encourage your teams to be bold and embrace these emerging technologies and engage them early to participate in the implementation, like you heard Mario say, so that they feel like they're a part of the journey, and you're not doing this to them, because it's really about increasing productivity and making them more efficient and improving the user experience.
Excellent. Elsy, I saw you nodding along there. We'd love to hear your perspective on this change management and cultural piece.
Yes, no, I think Mario and Adam have put it out beautifully as to change management. And I think Adam touched in a very important aspect, really putting time and investment into people, right? The learning, what is in it for them, and as to the technology, how we will transform their job. So it's very important for people to understand, specifically in supply chain, that their jobs will be extremely dynamic. And what do I mean with that? That whatever they were hired for this specific period of time will transform and will be something totally probably different in a year from now. And that's the adaptability that we need our supply chain leaders and people to have, that their job description will entirely change while they're working in a company, specifically in companies that are huge. And also small companies, of course, if they want to have that journey. So I guess Mario and Adam's points were right on. And I think just technology is so important, but also people is very important in order to have the technology and for the technology to work and to really display what we want the technology to have, right? That benefit of the technology, the people is the, I think, the engine of the technology.
Great points. Before we wrap up, Andy, I'd love to hear your opinion on this challenge.
Yeah, I just want to add in that people want to do higher order work. People don't want to really come to work every day wanting to do repetitive type work or web scraping over and over again and things like that. And so one of the things, I'm a big advocate, with supply chain teams, for better or worse, do tend to have fairly significant budgets, and devote a corner of that budget to training and development of those people. In particular, the supply chains of the future are so data driven that having someone on your team, or more than one person on your team, who have a business understanding of AI, I couldn't emphasize this enough. Doesn't have to be an IT expert's understanding, but a business understanding. And there are terrific programs and courses. MIT has a great one. It's only 6 weeks. It's 6 or 7 hours a week. It's all virtual, and it's not terribly expensive. So, I mean, there are things like that out there that I think can really position us to make a lot of gains, and then really develop specific strategies to drive those transformations away from that repetitive work towards higher order work, which is really what people want to do to grow in their careers anyway.
Great points, Andy. As we wrap up today's conversation, would love to go around the virtual room and ask each panelist, in light of today's conversation, what excites you about the future of logistics? Starting off with Adam with that question.
Yeah, I think, part of the supply chain journey, it's just been really exciting to see all of this new technology. And I guess what I really look forward to and what excites me is how to see we within our business can evolve our business process, to make our teams more effective. And as what you just heard Andy say, our groups don't want to come in and be scrubbing data. We want to make our jobs challenging. We want to make these jobs fulfilling. And these emerging technologies really help improve that user experience to give them access to this information right at their fingertips. And it's neat, it's exciting, and I think it'll really be able to attract people to the organizations that figure this out and make that that experience for your team members exciting and new.
Great points, Adam. And Mario, same question to you. What excites you about the future of the logistics industry?
Oh, I think that last years have been really, really exciting because COVID brought a lot of visibility on the supply chain and on our jobs, right? We got a lot of challenges, and I like to work in a challenging environment. So in the previous year, I've been really excited about how to overcome all the situations that arise due to COVID. Going forward, I mean, we have to look for new ways to delight our customers, right? Logistics and our work is critical on making sure that we delight our customers. So finding new ways of doing that got me excited. Also, what I mentioned before, our green targets, making sure that we hit those, making sure that we are doing things in an optimal way, right? Because that, at least I have kids, right? So I'm pretty sure that I am doing this for my kids, and I'm doing this to make sure that they have a better world when we when we deliver our products and do our operations in the right way. I'm very excited about the new technologies, right? I'm looking forward to see what the 5G technologies will allow us to do going forward, wearables, and how do we get all that embedded in our supply chain and our logistics operations. So many things that I'm seeing in the market, many things that we're trying. And as I mentioned before, I'm part of technology, so I'm very excited about looking at all the new things that are coming in the market, new things that we can do, new things to optimize our operation, new things to delight our customers, and as we said, to have a future with more cheers.
Excellent, appreciate that, Mario. And Elsy, would love to hear your perspective. What excites you about the future of the logistics industry?
I will add to Mario and Adam. I think what really excites me is that I'm seeing more diversity and representation in logistics and supply chain in general. Specifically in the United States, there has been great strides on diversity representation, not only in women, but any other dimension of diversity. I do believe I see more potential to have more diversity in other countries in logistics and supply chain. And I think as global leaders or global logistics leaders, it's up to us to really enhance the representation in other countries. So that's what excites me, because that will really make a difference of thought and also creativity as to some solutions, not only in technologies, but also in processes. And all the other points have been touched, right? Like the technology Mario mentioned. Now supply chain is getting more exposed recently. We were the underdogs. Now we are the evil partners. So I think overall what excites me is that we need to change that we are the positive partners in every organization. We are the glue. We are truly the glue of the organization. And sometimes it is not recognized. So that's what excites me about the future of logistics.
Excellent, appreciate that, Elsy. And last but not least, Andy, what excites you about the future of the logistics industry?
I mean, I think we're front page news. That excites me. If you go back 5 years or more, you see supply chain all that often on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. But we're there on a regular basis today, and we deserve that seat at the table. And so as I think about the talent development, I look at my co-panelists here. If you've got a commercial background, if you've got a supply chain background, that's going to take you a long way towards finding your way into the C-suite, which is what I expect to see more of, and we're already seeing that happen today. So I think we've got a great trade organization in the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals to help develop our talent, and I think we're going nowhere but up as a field. So we've got more universities than ever offering degrees in our discipline, and so we're headed in the right direction in logistics.
Excellent, appreciate that, Andy. And that brings to an end a very, very interesting conversation. My thanks to all of the panelists today for taking the time out of their very busy schedules to join us for a very important conversation. This webinar will be available on demand for people to view, so that will be sent out in the coming days. Once again, thanks to all the panelists, and hopefully see you again really soon on another Reuters Events webinar.